My name's Ashish Lamba. I'm an assistant professor of mechanical engineering here at USM.
My name is Kaus Mohammed. I'm a sophomore at USM. I'm majoring in elementary education and history with a minor in race and ethnic studies.
My name is Romeo Kimpwene, and I came to the United States. It's going to be 10 years by the end of the year. I was in Atlanta, Georgia first, and then I moved to Maine. I stayed in Georgia for about 3 years, and then I came up here. I graduated from USM. I have a double bachelor in biology and biochemistry, and for now I'm working in a lab. My plan is to continue to go to medical school.
I came to USM in August 2019, so I'm going to start my 4th semester this coming semester. Before that, I was in State College, Pennsylvania for 10 years. That's where I got my PhD and where I also worked for a couple of years. And before that, before 2009, I was in Singapore where I got my undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering at the Nanyang Technological University.
I am originally from Kansas City, Missouri, and I moved to Lewiston, Maine 15-ish years ago. My parents are originally from Somalia, and they immigrated to America in the early 90s due to the Civil War that broke out there. So they came here in 1993, and they've been here ever since.
I've been in the US for 10 years now. Well, more than 10 years. 2009 is when I came here, so 11 years now, yeah. I did my high school in India. I did my 11th grade in Mumbai, and I did my 11th and 12th in Mumbai. And then before that, for 3 years, I was in this country called Mauritius. It's off the coast of Madagascar. And then before that, I was all over India. My father was in the Navy, so we used to move around a lot. And now my parents are in New Delhi.
I came in the United States as an international student, so I came in to further my education. And right after obtaining my high school diploma, the same year, by the end of the civil year in December, I came in here. So pretty much it's to pursue my education and to better my life.
Depending on where you are in Somalia, it's kind of hard because there's like a huge difference between like the rich and the poor. And so the rich being the people in the government, and there's a lot of poor people, and there's a terrorist group there called Al-Shabaab. And so a lot of people are living in fear, and a lot of people don't have money to feed their families and food and things like that because it is a third world country now. But however, the education there is amazing. The people there are amazing, but it's kind of hard because it's so spread out and everything is tribal. So there's a lot of like tribalism issues going on there because the government is one tribe and the government doesn't like other tribes, and like different tribes have like different sections in Somalia. And so it's kind of just a constant like battle between different tribes and trying to see who can take power and who can't.
I was born in the Congo. I stayed there till I was 18, so my experience in Congo was pretty good. From the friendship that I made, the schooling I went, pretty much made me the man that I am today. My family, both of my parents still there. I have 2 of my siblings there too. One of my other siblings is in South Africa, and I have other siblings here in the United States too. But growing up there was pretty great. I always had my family around. Both mom and dad were around, and we loved it. We loved the food. We love the environment. We love the passion people have. It's a really welcoming place, and as I would say, as many countries in Africa, we are a welcoming place. But unfortunately, the politics and the social economics is not really prosperous. So a lot of people try to get better or try to better their lives by going outside.
In the US, you have 2 different parties, right? So you've got the Democrats the liberals and the Republicans, the conservatives. In India, you've got hundreds upon hundreds of political parties that you can potentially vote for. So usually what used to happen in India was that you would cast your vote for a particular party, and then no one party would have the majority to create the government, so they would have to form coalitions between different parties in order to make a government, which is, you know, something that's unheard of in the US. But that has kind of sort of shifted over the past two electoral cycles in India. It has been for the first time in many years, you know, in a couple of decades at least, that only one party has successfully got a majority of the votes, and that's the Bharatiya Janata Dal Party in India. They're called the BJP. They are the conservatives, you know, more like the Republicans that you see in the US. But the difference that I would see in the US than the Republican Party in the US is that they seem to be more founded in religion, right? So in India, you have Hinduism is the #1 religion, and that party is founded on the fundamentals of Hinduism, right? So India has a very large history, right? One of the oldest civilizations in the world. So, you know, we had our own Hindu kings and empires, but then we also had the Muslim kings, the Mughals, who came and ruled over India, right? So we have a very big Muslim population as well.
I feel like this past election was kind of crazy, and just with everything going on and the aftermath of it, especially with the recent events. So I feel like the biggest difference is there's not just a whole two-party system. I feel like here it's kind of just a two-party system. So either Democrat or Republicans. Even if there are other, people running who are in different parties, it's kind of just a two-party system. Whereas I think in Somalia, it's kind of like there are multiple parties. At least that's what that's what I read. And so it's not really about the parties, but it's about the tribes and the people who are running and their histories and things like that. Where it's here, it's like either Democrat or Republican. So it's like, I feel like it's completely different, but I think voting-wise, it's kind of similar, I guess. I just feel like here in the US, it's obviously like more controlled. So it's in a controlled environment, whereas in Somalia, I don't think it's really in a controlled environment, because I don't think a lot of people really care about who the prime minister is, because at the end of the day, they have their tribal leaders, right? Those are the people that they're gonna follow, because that's who's from their tribe. I feel like a lot of it is I feel like politicians here do it for themselves. I honestly think that politicians don't really care about the people, really, in my opinion. I feel like because we're in a republic, representative democracy, there are people making choices for us. And so it's kind of not always what we want, but what they want. I feel like that's an issue.
I would think as far as the process, I would think we are a little different because of here you have the Electoral College, where the popular vote doesn't necessarily represent the electoral vote. It's kind of voting to vote again. It's kind of an indirect vote where you're voting for electors, and the person with the most electoral vote become the president. It happened 4 times in history here, like 1876, 1888, 2000 with Bush and Al Gore, and then in 2016 with Trump, where he lost the popular vote to Hillary Clinton, but he was still the president. Back home, it's more the majority, it's the popular vote, and that's the main difference. As far as the process and trust in the process, I would say we are still a little far behind in Africa, because I don't think people trust the institution to hold elections the way it's trusted in the Western world. I think there's a lot of people who believe that the incumbent president don't organize election to lose them. So it's highly likely than not to see a president winning. I think we really have. I don't mind the way it's set up, but I have a certain problem with the organization. We really need to find people that we trust, and really have to make sure that they are independent. Because we do have a electoral commission, the National Independent Electoral Commission, but it's it's more politicized. It's more like you have the president it looks like they don't pledge allegiance to the country and to the success of the process, but they pledge allegiance to the president. So it's more than likely to for me, it's to really, really, really try to fight corruption at that level and try to give them the independence that they need and then want to make sure that there is no bad consequences for them if they really uphold the actual results of the election. So I know it's kind of hard because the corruption, or I would say the politicization of things, doesn't just start there, and you do have to do a real change from like the people that choose them, because they are the president of the commission is chosen through a vote, and you have to make sure that those people that are voting, the people that are passing those laws for the elections, are people of good morals.
I think I learned that a lot of stuff in America is kind of masked, and that a lot of the stuff that they teach us in elementary school, middle school, or high school is not always what we see in the real world, right? So I feel like a lot of it is kind of, especially with like history and things like that, a lot of it's like stuff that I should know, but I never had the chance to know because they never taught me this stuff in school. So it's kind of like I have to re-educate myself about this country and kind of learn more and more about the things that are masked.
As I was saying, they're like more religiously based than what the Republican Party is over here. And other than that, those are some of the differences, but the similarities are that every election cycle, especially how social media is and how the news channels are right now, it's not about, the news is not about giving information about anymore. It's about just selling, what you can sell, and fear sells, right? And having good production value and things like that. So, you have Fox News over here, you have CNN over here, and you've got similar news channels in India as well, where they're like super bombastic, high production values with very opinionated news anchors who are giving their opinions instead of giving you the news. So, those are some of the similarities that exist. So I would say that the circus of politics is kind of the same in both places.
I think it's like a parliament, so it's like the British kind of style. So there's like a parliament and there's a prime minister. There's not really like a president, but it's kind of just like kind of scattered around. There aren't many laws that are passed because there's constant argument, and a lot of the people who are in the government aren't originally from Somalia. They're Somalis who grew up in different countries and came back. And so a lot of it is just like tribal. It's not really like a central government, and a lot of tribes have their own government and do what they want to do in their different sects of Somalia. So.
India, typically, when the pandemic has like upended elections all over the world with mail-in votes and things like that happening, right? But if you just look at the regular election, the election for the main government of India, you're not electing the president in India. So the president is just more so ceremonial in India. It's the prime minister who leads the government. And at the time of voting, the voter is not selecting the prime minister. They are simply selecting the party that they would like to form the government. Once the party wins, they select their own prime minister. But many parties over many election cycles already let the voters know who they're going to select to be their prime minister. Whereas in the US, it's very, very based on which presidential candidate you're going to vote for, right? So that's again a big difference, right? Because in the US, it more so is the choice in person at the time of voting, whereas in India it seems, it is more so the choice in the party that you're putting down on paper. That's the fundamental difference, but in an overall sense, it's similar, right? The person that you vote for in the US, usually you vote along the party lines in which you believe. So if I'm conservative, I would vote Republican. If I'm liberal, I would vote Democrat, no matter who the candidate is. And it's similar in India as well. Yeah. I want to try to use my position to use that as a platform to educate and inform more people about the issues. I also want to help people from the outside when they come to the US want to start working towards helping them integrate into American society and US life in a better manner. You know, it can be a very big cultural shock as an immigrant. You know, we all realize that. I also, you know, as fundamentally as an engineer and as a scientist, I hope my research work, you know, although it's very basic, it goes and applies towards helping people out more and more, right? That's the main reason why we do engineering. And I don't want to just help people in the US, right? I want to use the head start that one would have in my position in the US to create a better world for everyone all over the world, right? So those are the big and lofty goals. But how I actually make a difference, you know what, right now I'm just a social justice warrior who posts online and vents their anger and has arguments with, you know, family members back in India and with friends over here with differing political opinions, and you know, those are the general things that we do. Yeah.
Part of that is kind of becoming a teacher and making sure that these kids aren't lied to, because I feel like when I got to college, a lot of the stuff was like, oh my God, right? And it was stuff that I should have known that I didn't know. So kind of just making sure these kids are like educated and they know that America is not the country that people make it seem to be, and that every country has made mistakes. But because you're masking those mistakes, people are going to have ideals about this country that they shouldn't. I'm still in like the learning stage, and so I'm still learning more and more about how the whole political system in Somalia works, because it was a dictatorship for so many years, and so there was one person in power for 20 plus years, and there were countless wars and civil wars. So I guess just knowing more about like where I come from and like where my parents come from, and kind of just educating myself about all the things that I feel like I missed out with during my life and things like that, and kind of just being able to actually go there, right, and actually experience it would be cool. I want to keep educating myself, and hopefully like America is not this horrible country, but it's also like just educating myself about everything and making sure that I'm not lying to myself and making sure people aren't lying to me. So just learning more and more as much as I can.
So I think about that a lot, and you know, being out of India, trying to affect change in India is an extremely difficult thing. The only way that I can try to do that is, you know, through my parents, you know, making small changes with the way how they do things, and you know, giving them advice on how they should live their life based on what we live over here. But that's a very small sample size, right? And you're not making too much of a difference when you're doing that. Initially, you know, I would be on these chat groups with the big family members, and you know how it is with family members. Imagine being on like a Thanksgiving meal with the family with different political opinions, but you know, you just do that all day, all the time. That's not really making a difference, and you know, that's something I consciously stepped away from. What I would like to do to kind of improve the linkages and the bridges between the India and the US is, I want to, and I'm trying to talk to the USM administration, that they should leverage their international faculty to go and give talks in schools and different places in their home countries, so that they can actually engage the students over there and try to get them to come to USM and come enrich Maine's economy, because you know, the population of Maine is growing older, and you know, people leave. People who are very good in Maine, many of them leave the state and don't stay here. So yeah, want to try to set those pathways up to get international students and Indian students in particular to come to USM and help grow Maine's economy.
I always told my parents ever since I was a youngin, I think the more impact I can make into the society, into the community where I live, it doesn't necessarily need to be the word, but I think the impact you can have in your local community, your society, or your country is great. And being in a field where I feel like I can help people into the medical field, I think helping especially minorities with certain undetected diseases, like so as you can see, for example, when the pandemic hits, a lot of people that were affected were minorities, because they already had pre-existing conditions. They already were dealing with diabetes, obesity, and things like that, like hypertension and high blood pressure, but it goes undetected when people are in minorities communities. Sometimes they don't have the means to access the right doctor. Sometimes they don't have that. So beyond healing people, beyond caring for people like that, I would have to have a social impact in the sense of where we can have healthcare for everybody, especially in minorities communities, and try to bring the system of healthcare that I've seen here back home, where people can have access to care even without having the necessary means or the necessary money at that time. Because it's inconceivable to have people dying just because they lack $50, $100 to go to the hospital. God bless America for giving me the opportunity to do what I'm doing right now, and may peace be upon the world. Now we're seeing a change in presidency. Hopefully things will get better. God bless the Congo and all of Africa, because I still hold my country and Africa dear to my heart. I think things will get better. It may take time, but I'm really hopeful things will get better.